What's up everyone, it's Dakota and welcome back to another Magic the Gathering video, and today we're going to be bringing you a deck tech on the Izzet Prowess deck, a deck that over 2 different regional championships and the arena championship had the highest win rate of any other deck on the weekend, which is absolutely insane considering that this was kind of usurped by a lot of the other like Izzet Cauldron and Izzet VV decks, you know, and I mean this seems like it's 100% legit. It's been performing very well and only getting better and better as the format has kind of went on. So I'm going to be bringing it to y'all today, but before we get into the deck and we talk about the ins and outs of the Izzet Prowess deck, if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to see more videos from me where we talk mainly about the modern and standard format, as well as some other long form and short form content for your viewing pleasure. So if that interests you, please consider subscribing and ring that notification bell so you know when those videos get posted. It's a free, easy way to support me and my content, and if you want even more content, go ahead and check out the description down below where I have a link to my Discord server, a link to my Twitch channel, a link to the Casual Spikes Podcast YouTube channel, and a code for the sponsor of the channel, Manatraders. If you want to play a deck like Izzet Prowess or any other decks in the standard, modern, or whatever format that you typically enjoy playing, then be sure to check out Manatraders. Manatraders makes it super easy because instead of putting all that money up front into one deck that you may or may not like playing, you get the flexibility of renting and playing whatever cards you want, in whatever decks you want, whatever you want. Manatraders has been super convenient for me. It's been super easy as a content creator just to be able to pick out and play different decks, whether on the Casual Spikes Podcast YouTube channel or on the channel itself when we go and play challenges and stream and all that stuff, but also super easy and convenient for like play testing and being able to try out different matchups and just seeing what decks I personally like playing. And if you use that code in the description down below, you'll be able to get 5% off your monthly subscription. I want to thank Manatraders for being the sponsor of the channel. Now let's go ahead and talk about this Izzet Prowess deck. So being the resident Prowess gamer, I played a lot of Izzet Prowess in Modern, and I picked up the deck very briefly in Standard when it was still kind of like all in on the more aggressive, maybe less mid-rangey style of deck in Standard. But this is a little bit different here as we kind of look at the creatures here. Some of the big Prowess threats are Elusive Otter, which I know players have kind of played like very seldomly in the past, I mean like a while ago, but this is a 1-mana Prowess creature, and creatures with power less than Elusive Otter's power can't block it. So this is a creature that you can get really big, and instead of like having it be smaller than your opponent's creatures, then attacking and then making it bigger, you're also further incentivized in a lot of cases to play cards that will just naturally grow the Otter's power thanks to the Prowess effect on the card. And you also have like a little splash here, so you can actually play, you know, Grove's Bounty and distribute +1/+1 counters on any number of target creatures you control. So it's just a decent mana sink that then you can play off of the adventure and get the 1/1 creature. We see cards like Slickshot Show Off, which is easily one of my favorite red creatures of all time. At 2 mana, 1/2, Flying Haste. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn, but you can plot it for 1 in a red, meaning that you can cast it on a later turn, and a lot of the times casting it on a later turn is a lot better than just playing it into open mana, because you have, at least in Izzet colors or in Gruul, you have the opportunity to cast it with all of your mana up, so if your opponent doesn't have a counterspell, then you're able to protect it with things like Snakeskin Veil or whatever other options you have to either give it indestructible or hexproof to kind of blow out your opponent's removal spell, and on top of that also give the Slick Shot more power to just hit your opponent for a ton of damage. We see cards like Drakecatcher here, and that's kind of what I alluded to in the beginning, where, you know, it's starting to morph a little bit into these Prowess decks that are, you know, that were more mid-rangey or were like kind of fine with playing a longer game if it couldn't just close out the game right away. It helps too that Drakecatcher also is a Prowess creature, and it has Vigilance. A 1/3 body is nothing to snub your nose out, especially when you can kind of leave up mana for some of your other interactive spells in this deck. But this card has an added bonus of when it deals combat damage to a player, you put that many incubation counters on this creature. So if you hit your opponent for 3 with a Drakecatcher, it gets 3 counters on it. And if you can remove 3 incubation counters from it, you get a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying, so you get other evasive threats, even more tantalizing targets, if you will, for the Grove's Bounty part of the Elusive Otter to, again, kind of go wide, hit your opponent big with a Drakecatcher one time, and it's going to pay massive dividends because you're going to be able to make multiple 2/2 creatures, and you're not reserved to doing this as a sorcery, so you can kind of let these counters accumulate until either your opponent goes to remove the Drakecatcher, then you can make a ton of Drakes, or you can just do it on your opponent's end step to, you know, kind of make them question like, well, should I remove it now? Or, you know, however the case may be. Moving into the spells, because that's the important thing here. As you know, prowess decks we've seen in modern, you know, the focus is like, all right, you have a few number of creatures that maybe have prowess or have some kind of effect like that are going to end up getting bigger the more you cast non-creature spells. So what's kind of your follow-up? I guess I should say that Stormchaser's Talent technically counts as like a 1 mana, making an otter with prowess. There's also kind of like some benefits that we'll see in the deck here very shortly that we had seen from other Izzet style decks in the format period. First thing, we're going to start with Boomerang Basics. You return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If you control that permanent, you draw a card. This allows you to make multiple copies of 1/1 otters with prowess with Stormchaser's Talent while also getting to draw a card off Boomerang Basics. You could also technically do this with your elusive otters to then distribute +1/+1 counters onto your creatures if you end up getting more damage through that way, or less so like in protecting like your creatures, but you know, you have a decent amount of things that you can use Boomerang Basics to. But I think the key thing here is just going to be bouncing like Stormchaser's Talent and then maybe elusive otter to get to draw cards and then get access to either the sorcery part of this or to just make another otter. You can even technically get to a point where if you have enough mana, you can again play kind of this like grindy mid-range plan where you can spend 4 mana to level it up, to return a Boomerang Basics to your hand, bounce the Stormchaser's Talent, get to draw a card, you know, play it again, make another otter, and then be able to activate it and just kind of do this loop, and you're going to be able to draw additional cards while also getting to make more 1/1s and eventually get to the point where again you can kind of play this, loop this, grab another spell, and then maybe kill a creature and then attack for a bunch of damage with all of your otters. Bounce Off is another bounce spell. This one is instant speed, and you can just return any creature or vehicle to its owner's hand. So this is a way that you can be interactive with your opponent while also using this as a way to kind of like save one of your creatures. Obviously, and especially again with elusive otter being able to have adventure, you're going to be able to get even more value from that card. We see Burst Lightning as a, burn spell that we can kick to send to our opponent's face. A lot of times in these prowess decks, and I've seen it in modern, where you want to use like Lightning Bolt to kind of finish off your opponent. This is kind of like that finisher where, again, if we do play a longer game, this is going to be totally fine going to the face for 4 damage, but it is also fine in the early game being able to get some smaller creatures out of the way to ensure that you can get prowess triggers on your otter or on your Slickshot Show-Off, or again, just go to the face and give you a few extra points of damage when kind of swinging for a big chunk of damage or trying to go for lethal. We see Into the Floodmaw, which is another bounce spell, but this one like has to go at like your opponent's things. So if it goes after a creature, you don't have to gift your opponent anything, but you can gift them a fish to return any target non-land permanent to their hand. This does give you a lot of flexibility because a lot of the time that 1/1 fish isn't going to matter because it's not going to be able to block elusive otter, and it's not going to be able to block the Slickshot Show-Off either, and really has like a hard time, surviving against any of the other spells that we have in hand to kind of ensure that we're able to disrupt our opponent as much as possible while we're trying to commit a lot of things to the board and kill them very quickly. We see 4 opt here as well. Scry 1, draw a card. This has been in standard for a while, this card, and it will continue to be in standard for a while thanks to being printed in Foundations, but it's just been a great cantrip ever since it was reprinted into standard, and really just continues to be the go-to option for a lot of these blue spell-based decks. We see Sleight of Hand also as another like card selection option here. You look at the top 2 cards, put one of them in your hand, the other one on the bottom. So it lets you look at 2 cards right away and pick the best one of 2, where instead, opt, you have to make the decision to either scry to the bottom or top, and then you either get to draw that card or you get to draw a random card. Obviously, Opt has the flexibility of being at instant speed, where Sleight of Hand is a sorcery. One of the more interesting cards in this deck actually is Secret Identity, because it plays 2 roles. One, you can either have your creature become a citizen with base power and toughness 1/1, and it gains hexproof. So you can use this as a protection spell, and with how the rules work, your creatures, like they have like prowess, or in the case of Slickshot Show-Off, just get a +2/+0, you're actually able to keep the buffs on the creature. So, even if you have like a 9/1 or like a 9/2 Slickshot Show-Off, and you go to Secret Identity it to protect it, you'll get an additional trigger, so it'll bring it up to like an 11 power creature, and then it'll end up being like still an 11 power creature, but then it's also going to have hexproof. Of course, it's going to have 1 toughness then after that, but you end up dodging your opponent's removal spell, and you still get to deal massive amounts of damage. Same thing with the other half of it, where you can have a creature become a hero with base power and toughness 3/4, and it gains flying and vigilance, so you can even do this to like a Drake Hatcher or even elusive otter, or whatever. More than likely going for a Drake Hatcher, because that's going to immediately give you enough counters to make a 2/2. But again, if you also have enough spells that you can play, then Drake Hatcher ends up being a creature that can make multiple Drakes just off of 1 casting of Secret Identity plus a few other spells. We see Wild Ride here, giving a creature +3/+0 and haste until end of turn. So this is like a way that Elusive Otter just becomes an immediately for 2 mana is like dealing 5 damage to your opponent. And of course, we have even more things kind of that we can play to then further increase the Elusive Otter's power. And the fact that we can harmonize it later gives us some options and flexibility for giving creatures haste later in the game. 4 Stock Up is the final spell in the deck. This is just a clean, easy way of just kind of setting up some turn 4 kills. We look at the top 5 cards, put 2 in our hand, put the rest on the bottom. Let's potentially go find like an Elusive Otter plus like a Wild Ride or something of that nature, or other interactive spells to be able to bounce our opponent's things and push through the final points of damage to kill our opponent. The mana base, we have 1 Breeding Pool, 5 islands, 3 multiversal passages, 4 River Pyre Verge, Spire Bluff Canal, and Steam Vents. Of course, the more important thing is that you are a blue-red deck, with really the only green card in your deck being the Elusive Otter on the adventure half of it. So you want to have Breeding Pool and Multiversal Passage. Also gives you some flexibility in being able to make green mana or red mana if you need it. In the sideboard, we see Fire Magic here. For 1 mana, we can deal 3 to each creature. For 3 mana, we can deal 2 to each creature. And for 6 mana, we can deal 3. And we can do it at instant speed. A lot of the time, you're only going to deal 2 damage to each creature. So, you can use this very early on to clean up some small tokens if your opponent's trying to make a bunch of Storm Chaser Challenge tokens. Or you can level it up for 3 mana and get rid of some 2 toughness creatures. We see Soul Guide Lantern as kind of a nod to some of the other graveyard decks. We still need to respect them, even if we don't want to. Spell Pierce and Spell Snare as some counter spell like interaction here. Spell Snare being absolutely massive because of all the really good 2 converted mana cost spells that we're seeing in the format. Where we're seeing things like Artist Talent from the Lessons deck. We see 2 mana spells even like in Drake Hatcher and Slickshot Show Off from this deck. Spell Snare has just gotten a ton of mileage in the standard format currently, and seemingly will continue to do so for quite a while. Spell Pierce has just always been good since it was printed in Aether Drift. We see 1 Torch to Tower here as a little bit more interaction. Seer has been an increasingly popular interactive spell for a lot of the red decks, just dealing 4 damage to a creature or planeswalker. Is a lot of damage for 2 mana, and getting that at instant speed is a very nice touch. We see Wand, where apparently YouTube... oh my goodness, closed captioning, whatever subtitles like to call it Washington, but we've seen Wan Shitong, a librarian, which is like a good like mid-range option, and same thing with like Ral Crackling Wit, just another creature or a planeswalker that allows you to kind of go over the top in the matchups where you are going to kind of play a longer game and kind of dig in for a longer game rather than trying to kill your opponent as fast as possible. And that is the Izzet Prowess deck for the standard format. In this challenge in particular that this list came from, I think there was like 2 or 3 that made the top 8, or it was like 2 that made the top 8 and another one that was like in 9th, but there was quite a few copies in the top 16. This deck seems increasingly more popular, and we've kind of gone full circle as this deck, of course, got kind of pushed out because of Izzet VV and then VV Cauldron and all this other stuff kind of going on. And now that the format is, I wouldn't necessarily say slower, but definitely at times can play a bit longer of a game, this deck has some pretty good options of either trying to close out the game very quickly while your opponent's trying to set up, or being able to kind of grind and play a good enough of a mid-range game plan where it can kill your opponent. And if you think that the mid-range game plan isn't good enough, trust me, take it from a person that played this style of deck in Modern, and hearing people talk about how bad like the mid-range option of like the Izzet Prowess deck is, and then see kind of like the accomplishments that I put up with that deck, just being kind of like a an average you know, to maybe above average player. Like, trust me, this mid-range game plan is going to be good enough in a lot of scenarios where you're looking to play maybe a slightly longer game, but not necessarily trying to, you know, win the late game and grind your opponent completely out of resources. But, you know, let me know in the comments down below what you think of this Izzet Prowess deck. Of course, let me know if you have a specific deck that you would like to see in the future. We don't normally post these on Thursdays. I like to get them up on Monday, but, you know, our schedule and everything kind of shifted everything in the other direction. So hopefully we're going to have something special set up for Friday here, but that's going to do it for me in this video. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Again, subscribe if you have not already done so. It's an easy way to support the channel, and check out all the other social medias in the comments or in the description down below. But that's going to do it for me. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. I hope to see you all in the next one.